This video is sponsored by DagsHub. And in a prior video, we've taken a look at the DagsHub platform, which in a nutshell provides you with a GitHub experience, but for your machine learning projects. And in this particular video, we're going to take a look at the DagsHub platform, where we're going to build a data science project, and then we're going to version the code and also the data. And then you're going to see how DagsHub does a lot of the heavy liftings for your machine learning operations. And so without further ado, we're starting right now. All right, and so the first thing that you want to do is head over to DagsHub.com, as shown here. And if you're new to DagsHub, it is a platform built on open source tools for managing your data science projects. And you could check out a prior video that I made about DagsHub, links provided in the video description. You could also sign up for a free account with DagsHub by clicking here. And then you could use your GitHub or Google credentials to sign in, or you could also use any other email to sign up. And so I already have an account, and I'll click here. Or I could go to the front page and click on the sign in link. And I'll click on the sign in with GitHub because that's what I use to sign up. All right, and now that we're signed in, I'm going to show you the resource that we're going to use in this tutorial. So click on the resources link. Click on Get Started, and then click on the Get Started overview. So you're going to see here that there's a total of about 5 pages in the Get Started. And you could follow this particular guide or tutorial in order to create your first data science project, which I'll be used as the basis for this particular tutorial video. All right, and so let's have a look here. Create a project on DagsHub, and you're going to see that it provides you all of the details that you need to do and all of the explanatory text. And so I'll provide you the link to this in the video description, and we're going to proceed further, and I'm going to show you exactly how you could get started. Let's head over back to DagsHub. And now we want to create our first repository. So go ahead and click on Create, found at the top right-hand corner, and then click on the New Repository. And for the repository name, you want to type in Hello World, Hello-World. And then you could type in your description here. My first data project. And then for git ignore, we're going to type in Python. And then click on Create Repository. All right, and there you go. This is your repository on DagsHub. So now we're going to clone this repo into our local computer. So you want to click on the remote and click on copy so that you got the Git address here. Now we're going to go to the terminal. So here, you're going to change the directory to where you wish to clone your repository. And we're going to clone it using git clone. So let me see where I am right now. Let me see the contents. Go to DagsHub. I already have Hello World from the prior tutorial. Why don't I create a new one? I'll just call it DagsHub Get Started. All right. So now that we're in the working directory, we're going to git clone it. Git clone, and then copy paste the git address that we copied earlier from DagsHub. Hit on enter. Let me enlarge the terminal window here. I'll increase the size of the font to be bigger. Okay, I'll just make it full screen then. Hit on enter. Okay, and then we want to change the working directory into Hello World. And so now I'm going to create a new conda environment. And if you already have a conda environment that you're working on, then you could change to the environment or you could activate the environment. So here we're starting from scratch. We're going to create one. And I'm going to call it my env. And we're using Python 3.9. And we're installing all of the dependencies here. Wait a moment. All right, and now we could activate the environment by typing in conda, activate, and then the name of the environment. Conda activate my env, enter. And notice here that on the left-hand side here, the name of the conda environment is displayed. And so let's go ahead and install DVC because we're going to use it for version control of our data. Pip install DVC. We're going to initialize it, DVC init. All right, so it is initialized, and now we could commit the changes to Git. And now we're going to proceed to configuring DagsHub as the DVC remote storage. And what this means is that we're going to use DagsHub, particularly its remote storage, to host the data and models along with our code. So a point to note here is that whenever you create a DagsHub project, it is automatically configured with its own DagsHub storage remote. And so in order to configure it locally, you need to copy and paste the 4 commands. Let me show you. Go to the remote here, and the commands are displayed right here. Let's copy that. I'm copying it line by line. Enter. Now the second line. Third line now. And the last line. So make sure that the token here, which serves as the password for your unique identifier by DagsHub, should be kept as a secret. So I'm going to blur this out, and don't share this with others as well. Paste it, and that's all. We just copy and paste. Let's go back to the terminal, and now we're going to check the current DVC configuration. Cat dvc/config.local. Enter, and so we see all of the information are correctly displayed. So now that we have initialized and configured DVC in our local repository, these actions created and updated the DVC directory and the DVC ignore file. Let's have a look. Actually, let's now check the local repository status, and you can do that by typing in git status-s. And so a rule of thumb here is that Git will track every file that ends with a .dvc. And now we could add and push the untracked modified files using Git tracking. We could do that by typing in git add .dvc, .dvc ignore, .git ignore. We're now going to commit it. Initialize DVC. And we're going to push it. Okay. All right, and now it's reflected in the repo. .dvc folder, .dvc ignore, .git ignore. And so far, we've created our first DagsHub project, and then we have cloned it into our local computer where we have already configured our Git and DVC remotes. All right, and now let's proceed to versioning the code and data. Let's go back to the DagsHub getting started. Resource docs, get started. And now we're going to proceed to the next one, which is version code and data. So here we're going to get the files from the repo of near Barracita. And so if we click here, we'll get all 3 files. I'll just get it line by line. Paste it here, hit on enter. Wait a bit. ls to check up. Requirements.txt is now in the repo. src folder and the data. So we now have data, requirements.txt, and the src. Let's check out the files in the current working directory. Type in tree. So this is a layout of the hierarchical view of all of the contents in the hello world directory. So we see here that we have a subfolder called data, and then inside the folder we have the enron.csv data, we have the requirements.txt file, we have the src subfolder, and inside it we have the constant.py, data preprocessing.py, and also the modeling.py. So the src folder, as you can see, it holds the data preprocessing, modeling, and constants file, and it is for our machine learning model building. So here we want to install the prerequisite libraries for running the machine learning model building, and the prerequisites are contained inside the requirements.txt file. So we want to pip install this, pip or pip3 install -r requirements.txt. Alright, and if you look at the DagsHub Getting Started tutorial that I mentioned earlier, there's a point where you could check whether you have progressed through the tutorial correctly, and it is called the checkpoint, which is right here. Let me show you. Checkpoint right here. So after you have pip installed it, you want to do the checkpoint, which tells you to do the git status -s. Let's do that. Okay, and it looks like the one shown here. Alright, and so at this point, we need now to decide which files will be tracked by Git and which files will be tracked by DBC. So let's proceed to tracking files with DBC. So let's have a look at the data. And we can see that there's a lot of data in here. See how many lines are there? There's about 980,000 lines in the data file of enron.csv, and because the data is quite big, we're going to track it using DBC, and the rest of the files will be tracked using Git. Let's head over up one folder, and now we're in the Hello World repo or folder. So we're going to add the data folder into DBC to be tracked by DBC. DBC add data. And now we're going to track changes to other files using Git. So git add data.dbc.git ignore, and then git commit, and then we're going to type in add the data directory to DBC tracking. And now two files have changed. Let's check the status. And we can see here that the data folder is not here because it's going to be tracked by DBC, and everything else will be tracked by Git. And so here we can see the remaining files, which are the src folder and the requirements.txt. And so we're going to now track it using Git. So you want to type in git add requirements.txt and then src. And as we have done earlier on, we already have added the data folder to be tracked by DBC. Hit on enter and then git commit -m add requirements and src to git tracking. Enter. Now we're going to push the DBC tracked files. Type in DBC push -r origin. Alright, files have been pushed. I need to git push first. Okay, it should now be here. Alright, it's here. And so as soon as we have run the git push, files are now updated here. Let's have a look at the data folder. You can see that it has a blue background because it is tracked by DBC. Click on it. And you're also going to see the blue background. So this indicates that it's tracked by DBC. Click on it. This is the file. Alright, and so now we're going to head back to the terminal. Let me enlarge the screen here. So we're now going to run the machine learning model building that are contained inside the src folder. So you want to type Python 3 src/data underscore preprocessing.py. And so all of the initial processing will be performed here. So you can see that it has already loaded the data, removed punctuation from the emails, labeled the encoding target column, vectorized emails by the words, and is saving data to file. Let's type in tree data. So we're going to see that as a result of running the data preprocessing.py, we have obtained 4 new files. So before we had only the enron.csv dataset, and because we have already run the data preprocessing, it has split the data to train and test as shown here in this step, and it has saved the data to the 4 files here. So we have the xtest, xtrain, ytest, and ytrain.csv. So now we've reached the checkpoint and we want to type in git status. So everything is up to date. DVC status. So nothing was changed. And this was from the prior run. And now we're going to go ahead and version the new status of the data directory, which had resulted in the addition of 4 files. We're going to type in DVC, add data, git, add data.dvc, git commit -m process raw data and save it to data directory. DVC push -r origin in order to push our changes to the remote. Give it some time. And finally, git push. Alright, and now let's have a look at the repo on DagsHub. Let's have a look at the new files that has been pushed here. Alright, and now they are here, and you can see they have a blue background, which indicates that they are tracked by DVC. So in this section, we've covered the basic workflow of DVC and Git. We have added our project files to the repository, and we have tracked them using Git and DVC. We have generated the preprocessed data using the data preprocessing.py file, and we have learned how to add these changes to DVC. Let's now proceed to the next step, which is track changes. Right here. So in this particular section, we're going to track the data science experiments and we're going to save their parameters and metrics. So in order to do that, we need to have DagsHub logger and we're going to install it. Let's head over back to the terminal. So pip3 install DagsHub. Enter, and now it's installed. Right, so we could see here, this is the contents of modeling.py right here. And let's have a look at the one that we're going to use in this section. So you can see that it is different here. It has import DagsHub and it has this portion here. So why don't we copy this and then go back to the terminal and let's just remove the old version. CD into src, and we're going to remove the old version and we're going to create one with the same name. Hit on I for inserting the contents. Now we're going to control or command V to paste the contents here. Hit on escape and then hit on the colon and then W to write, Q to quit, which means that we want to save it and then we want to exit. Let's type in git status. You see now we have modeling.py has been modified. Let me go up one folder first. Git add src/modeling.py. Git commit. Add DagsHub logger to the modeling module. And now we're going to run it. Python 3 src/modeling.py. Enter. So it's going to load the data sets for the modeling and then it's going to perform random forest model building. Alright, and now it's finished and it has an area under the curve score of 0.931. Type in git status -s. So you can see here we have also created the metrics.csv file and the params.yaml file as a result of us running the modeling.py. Let's have a look at the contents of metrics. Okay, so that's the content right here. So we have the name, the value, the timestamp, and the step. Let's have a look at the params.yaml. It's right here. That's the parameters. Now we're going to git add metrics.csv and params.yaml. We're going to git commit, new experiment, random forest classifier with basic processing. And then git push. Let's head over back to DagsHub repo. And it's right here, metrics.csv and params.yaml. So these two files have now been added to the repo. And we can see here now that we have git push. We now have more information in the experiments tab. Let's click here. And the information is updated here. The performance score. All right, and now you have already successfully created your first machine learning experiments, and we have already tracked it in DagsHub. Let's go back to the get started. Let's now proceed to the last one, explore a new hypothesis. So as you're exploring your machine learning project, you might come up with new hypotheses that might entail modifying some parameters or data that you're using for model building. And so at any given point in time in your project, you might have different or multiple hypotheses. So therefore, in order to keep them in tabs, we're going to create a new branch. So let's do that. Head over to the terminal. Let me clear this up, that it's going to look more tidy. So we're going to type in git checkout-b. We're going to call it data with punctuations. And so as already mentioned, we are using the Enron dataset, which contains information on emails. And the emails are stored in a CSV file, and they are labeled as being ham or spam. And so the current data processing method for the email is to lowercase the characters and remove the string's punctuation. So now we're going to try to reduce the processing time by not removing the punctuations, and then we're going to see how it will affect the model's performance. So let's go to the get started tutorial here, and we want to copy the information in here. So that's going to be the code that we're going to use to update the data preprocessing.py. Go back to terminal, right? But we have to first run this first. All right, and now we have switched to a new branch. So we're going to update the contents of the data preprocessing. Data preprocessing. Hit on I. Let me see if I could delete everything here. All right, and now let's paste in the updated contents. Hit on escape, hit on the colon, type in WQ to write and quit. Now we want to track and commit the changes with git add src data preprocessing.py git commit. Change data preprocessing method will not remove the strings. Punctuation. And let's run it. Data preprocessing.py. All right, it's finished. So we could proceed now to the checkpoint here. So if you run git status, it should look like this. If you run dvc status, it should look like that. So let's do that. Git status. All right, it looks the same, and dvc status also look the same as the one in the tutorial. Now we're going to track and commit the changes using dvc and git. Type in dvc add data, and then git add data.dvc git commit. Processed the data and tracked it using dvc and git. We're now going to push the code and data to the remotes. Git push origin data with punctuations. dvc push -r origin. Alright, and now we're ready to perform the actual model building using the updated data. Go ahead and run Python 3 src/modeling.py. And you see an updated score of the AUC here. Get status. And let's check DVC status. So we see that the metrics file has been updated, but the data is already updated. We're now going to track changes using git and push to the DagsHub repo. Type in git add metrics.csv, git commit punctuations, experiment results, update metrics.csv file. I accidentally typed on the other one. Let's try it again. Alright, and now we need to push it. Git push origin data with punctuations. Alright, it's already pushed. Let's go back to the DagsHub repo. Let's update the page. And we could see the two scores. So the first row is the newly updated one, which did not use punctuations, but then the prior one used punctuations. And so removing the punctuation resulted in a slight drop in the ROC AUC score from 0.931 to 0.927. And we can see here that DagsHub is tracking the performance of this, as we can see here in the two rows. And as it's not providing any performance upgrade, we're not going to use it because it resulted in worse performance. Now we're going to check out to the branch master. Type in the terminal git check out master. Now it's updated to master branch. And we're going to type in dvc check out. Alright, and congratulations, you have reached the finish line of the tutorial. And so in a nutshell, in this Get Started section, we have covered the fundamental of DagsHub usage. We have started by creating a repository in DagsHub, configured the Git and DVC. We have added the project files to the repository using Git, which tracks the code and configuration files. And we have also used DVC for tracking the data files. We have created our very first data science experiment using DagsHub Logger to log the metrics and parameters. Finally, we have learned to explore new approaches by performing some tweaks in the machine learning model experiments in order to see the results and effect on the model performance. Okay, and so congratulations once again on completing your first data science project on DagsHub. Thank you for watching until the end of the video. If you reached this far, please drop a dog emoji so that we know that you're the real one. And while you're at it, please like, subscribe, and hit on the notification so that you'll be notified of the next video. And as always, the best way to learn data science is to do data science. And please enjoy the journey.